Namaskar. Welcome to Hamska Academy. Today we are going to learn about the rise of nationalism in India. Nationalism in India, that is the third chapter in history. So today we will be looking at every subtopic in detail. Let us quickly start our learning. Nationalism in India is a topic for today. In this chapter, we'll be learning the First World War, the subtopics. First World War, Khilafat movement, and non-cooperation movement. The idea of Satyagraha. We'll get into the details of understanding the idea of Satyagraha. Rowlatt Act 1990. Differing strands within the movement. How different people have reacted differently for the movement. Movement in the countryside towards the civil disobedience movement. Factors that shaped the Indian politics towards the late 1920s. So, in the introduction, the modern nation, the word or the concept of modern nation was associated with the formation of nation states. So, in India, when many other colonies, like the growth of modern nationalism, is connected to anti-colonial movement. In India, like many other colonies, where many other countries in the world were occupied by their colonial masters, and the growth of nationalism has emerged in the process of the struggle against the colonial masters. So while they were opposing the colonial masters, the local people all became together and they emerged as a nation. That is how the concept has emerged, nationalism, even in India. The First World War, Khilafat, and the non-cooperation movement. So the First World War created a new political and economic situation. Due to the World War I, there was a downfall in the economy of India. At the same time, the political leaders had a hope that after the World War I, we are going to get freedom. But that did not turn into reality. India faced various problems due to the World War I or during this World War I period, that is from 1914 to 1918. So let us see what are those. First, there is an increase in the defense expenditure. When there is an increase in the defense expenditure, the lot of money is being spent to buy the equipment or to pay the equipment needs. Prices increased through the war years. From 1914 to 1918, continuously every year, the cost of the product started to be increased every level. And there were forced recruitments in the rural areas. They forced the people to come and join in the army to fight on behalf of British India. So during 1918, 1919, during 1920 and 1921, crops failed in many parts of India. So the introduction of the chapter goes like this. The word modern nationalism was associated with formation of nation states. Nation states means independent countries. How did this concept emerge in India? In India, like many other colonies, the growth of modern nationalism is connected to anti-colonial movement. Anti-colonial movement means in the process of fighting the colonial masters, all the people, those who are suffering, became united, and then the idea of nationalism emerged. That's how it emerged in India as well. The First World War, Khilafat movement, and non-cooperation movement. So first, let us discuss about First World War. The First World War was fought from 1914 to 1918. This created a new political and economic situation, a new political scenario and economic changes. So India faced a lot of problems during the war period, that is from 1914 to 1918. What are those problems? First thing, there is an increase in the defense expenditure. Secondly, prices increased through the war period. There were forced recruitment in the rural areas. Then we had 1918 to 1919 and 1920 to 1921. These were the years where crops failed in many parts of India. Let us now discuss about the idea of Satyagraha. What is the idea of Satyagraha? Satyagraha is a novel way, a new way of fighting the colonial rule in India. Satyagraha was fought, or Satyagraha is the way which was used for the first time in the history of fighting a colonial rule. It started in India for the first time. This was the philosophy of Gandhiji. So what is this Satyagraha mean? It is a non-aggressive, peaceful mass agitation against oppression and injustice. Satyagraha is a way where you show with a non-aggressive attitude. You don't become aggressive. You will have peaceful mass agitation against the oppression and injustice done to you. So here you don't use any violent methods. Satya means truth. Agraha means force. So Satya means insistence on truth, showing the significance on truth, making them to commit for truth. Then it's a moral force, not a passive resistance. It is a moral force where you play with the psychology of the person. In January 1915, Mahatma Gandhi returned to India. So Gandhiji organized Satyagraha movements in Champaran, which is in Bihar, in 1916, Kheda, district of Gujarat, in 1917, and amongst the cotton mill workers in Ahmedabad in 1918. Gandhiji was the one who initiated the idea of Satyagraha. What is this idea of Satyagraha? Gandhiji believed that those who are Satyagraha people, those who follow Satyagraha, are more brave than the one who tends to become violent. So here he is designing, or he is communicating, is using a novel way of fighting the colonial rule in India. He practiced this even in South Africa. So he used this method as a non-aggressive, peaceful mass agitation against oppression and injustice. Satyagraha means insistence on truth, be holding the truth and fight with the strength of the truth that will make the offender to surrender to you. When you don't become violent, they will not be able to attack you. So in January 1915, Mahatma Gandhi returned to India from South Africa, and then after he came to India, he organized Satyagraha movements in Champaran in Bihar 1916, Kheda district of Gujarat in 1917, and amongst the cotton mill workers in Ahmedabad in 1918. That's how the idea of Satyagraha got spread in India. Rowlatt Act and Jallianwala Bagh massacre. What is Rowlatt Act? The act gave the government enormous powers to repress, means to suppress the political activities, and allowed detention of political prisoners without trial for 2 years. So here the Rowlatt Act, which was passed in 1919, gave extraordinary powers to suppress the political movements in our country. Along with that, it also gave an option that the political leaders who are fighting against the government can be detained, can be arrested, and kept behind the bars for more than 2 years, which means imprisoned for 2 years without submitting them to any kind of court. This is the law Rowlatt Act 1990. This was remarked as a cruel joke by Mahatma Gandhiji. Let us see what happened in Jallianwala Bagh. On 13th of April 1919, a huge crowd gathered in an enclosed ground of Jallianwala Bagh. So on 13th of April, a huge crowd gathered there, which is in a closed ground area. So I think that day was a Baisakhi festival. So General O'Dwyer, the British officer, General O'Dwyer, entered the area, blocked all the exit points, and opened fire on the crowd, killing hundreds of people. There is an open ground where public gathered there. That day in Punjab, it was a Baisakhi festival. They were not aware about this Rowlatt Act or all these changes. So the crowd which came here was in an enclosed ground. Enclosed ground means there are only few exit points. Now, General Dyer, after he entered the area, he blocked all the exit points, means he closed all the exit points and then opened fire on the crowd, which means they cannot go anywhere. And he targeted and killed hundreds of people in this incident. As the news spread, as this kind of action taken by General Dyer against the innocent people, the news spread like strikes, clashes, attacking the police, attacking the government buildings, started by all the common people showing their anger towards the act done by General Dyer in Jallianwala Bagh incident. So the government responded to this with brutal repression. Already they have the law which is permitting them to make things like this. And on the top of this, when the people agitated, they got more angry and tried to suppress the entire movement brutally. So looking at all these things, Gandhiji called off the Rowlatt Satyagraha as the violence spread. As we discussed before, Satyagraha was the philosophy of Gandhiji. Gandhiji believed in non-violent struggle. Looking at people becoming violent, looking at innocent people dying, Gandhiji felt very bad and he suspended the Rowlatt Satyagraha because there is a lot of violence that is happening against the Khilafat movement. Khilafat movement means Khilafat, which is against movement. So Khilafat movement was led by two brothers, Ali brothers. Those are Shaukat Ali and Muhammad Ali. Who are the two brothers? Shaukat Ali and Mahmud Ali. So Khilafat committee was formed in Bombay in March 1919 to defend the Khalifa's temporal powers. Now we are talking about Khilafat movement. Now we have a new word called Khalifa. Now who is this Khalifa? Khalifa is the religious head of Muslims all over the world. The Britishers have started to deny the recognition of power of Khalifa. That is the reason why the Ali brothers started to lead a movement against the move of the Britishers. Britishers want to remove the powers of Khalifa. He is a king, he is the ruler of the Constantinople region, and he also has the post of religious head of the entire Muslim community. So when the Britishers did not recognize his powers and tried to reduce his powers, in counter to the step taken by the Britishers, the Shaukat Ali brother and Muhammad Ali started a movement, Khilafat, against the move of the British. So they formed a committee in Bombay in March 1919, and they want to defend Khalifa's temporal powers. Then what happened? Gandhiji, looking at this moment, want to have good relations between Hindus and Muslims. He want to unite Hindus and Muslims. So he thought this is a nice incident, and this was a situation where we can make Hindus and Muslims come together. So he convinced the Congress to join hands with the Khilafat committee or the movement and start a non-cooperation campaign for Swaraj. So here there is a mutual consent which is given by Congress and the Khilafat committee that they will cooperate with each other and both together will fight against the British, because the common enemy is British. The Khalifa brothers want to fight against the British, the Ali brothers. So they are against British. Similarly, Gandhiji also want to fight against the Britishers, but at the same time, he want to unite Hindus and Muslims together and want to have all of them coming into one particular way and fight against the Britishers. That's why Gandhiji convinced the Congress to join hands with the Khilafah movement. So at Congress session at Nagpur in December 1920, the non-cooperation movement was adopted after agreeing to join hands with the Khilafat committee movement. That is about Khalifa movement. Different strands within the movement. So what are the differing strands within the movement? So different people reacted differently for this particular movement. So how did different people react? Let us look at that. The non-cooperation movement and Khilafat movement together began in January 1921. So you can observe the flow here. 1919, the Khilafat movement started. 1920, the Congress adopted for the non-cooperation movement and also joined hands with the Khilafat movement members committee. And in 1921, January, they started the non-cooperation movement. Then the movement in the towns. How was the movement in the towns? It was started with middle class participation in the cities. Initially, it started with the middle class participation in the cities, which means middle class people have come out and they started to show their support towards non-cooperation. How? Students, teachers, lawyers gave up their studies, jobs, and legal practices, and they joined the movement. So when we said the middle class people participated in the movement in towns and cities, how? It is like students, teachers, job holders, lawyers have given up their studies and jobs, and they stopped doing the practices and they joined the movement protesting the Britishers. The council elections were boycotted. There were legislative councils which were having elections that time. That elections were boycotted by the political leaders. Foreign goods were boycotted, especially the British goods were targeted and they were burned in the four-way centers or circle points. Liquor shops were picketed. So the liquor shops were targeted and they used to go there and they used to ask them to close that one. So like that, the middle class people, students, teachers, job holders, lawyers, political leaders participated and left their studies and jobs. Political members did not contest in the elections and they boycotted the elections. Foreign goods were boycotted. Liquor shops were picketed. So this is how the movement happened in towns. So we have differing strands within the movement. So we are going from towns, then we'll go to villages. Like that, we'll study with different segments. How was the reaction? Let us see now peasants and tribals. Peasants and tribals took over the struggle which turned violent gradually. The peasants and the tribals thought that we have to do violent steps. We have to attack them. We have to target them. That's how we have to participate in the movement. So how was the movement in the Awadh region? The peasants were led by Baba Ramchandra in Awadh region against the landlords and the talukdars. So as I mentioned in the beginning, the peasants and the tribals took to the violent steps. So as they were led by Baba Ramchandra, they attacked the landlords and the talukdars. In 1920, Oudh Kisan Sabha was set up by Jawaharlal Nehru, Baba Ramchandra, and few others. Here it was a Allahabad Sabha meeting. In Oudh Kisan Sabha, all the farmers were brought together and they started to form a group that is called Oudh Kisan Sabha, which was headed by Jawaharlal Nehru, Baba Ramchandra, and few others. So that's how the movement started to spread in the village regions, in Awadh and surrounding regions. The movement coming to tribals in Andhra Pradesh. The movement of tribals in Andhra Pradesh was led by Alluri Sitaramaraju. Alluri Sitaramaraju led the guerrilla warfare in Gudem Hills of Andhra Pradesh. So here the peasants attacking the landlords and talukdars. Similarly, Alluri Sitaramaraju taking the lead of the tribal groups, and he started to fight the guerrilla warfare in the Gudem Hills of Andhra Pradesh. So the rebels, what did they do? The rebels in the tribal groups attacked the police stations. They want to show their dissatisfaction. So Raj was captured. Raj means here Alluri Sitaramaraju was captured and executed in 1924. So the tribal movement's strength was lost there, and like that, the movement turned to be violent. Swaraj in the plantations. Coming to the plantations, in the plantation areas, Swaraj means moving freely. For the plantation workers, Swaraj means moving freely. What is this moving freely? Moving freely means the Swaraj plantation workers were not allowed to go out of the plantation. That's why when they heard the word Swaraj, they thought it is the time for them to walk freely, move out of the plantations freely. So they protested against the Inland Immigration Act of 1859, which prevented them from leaving the plantation without permission. As I told you, for them, it is not allowed for them to go out of the plantation. So they have to take permission and they have to go, which means generally they don't get permission. But when they heard Swaraj is going to come, they can walk freely. So which act is stopping them from going out of the plantation is Inland Immigration Act 1859. Each group interpreted the term Swaraj in their own ways. Each group has understood the term Swaraj in their own ways. Some took to violent methods, some took to peaceful methods, some thought we can walk freely from the plantations, some thought we can attack the police stations and everything. So like that, there were differing stands for different people in the movement. What happened then? Coming to the civil disobedience movement. In February 1922, Mahatma Gandhi decided to withdraw the non-cooperation movement because people are not able to understand exactly what is the movement. Gandhiji believed that it has to be a non-violent movement, but people started to take weapons, people started to attack the police stations and everything. So Gandhiji decided in February 1922, we will withdraw the non-cooperation movement. So the young leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose pressed for more radical mass agitations and for full independence. So there was a outbreak or voices coming up in Congress itself, like Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose. They insisted on more mass struggles. Then only the Britishers will leave our country. We need complete freedom. full independence. They started to argue like this. So many leaders like C.R. Das, Chittaranjan Das, and Motilal Nehru formed the Swaraj Party within the Congress to urge for a return to council politics. If you remember carefully, when we started the civil disobedience movement, the non-cooperation movement, there the political leaders boycotted the council elections. So now a group in the Congress itself formed as another party known as Swaraj Party, and they are arguing that they will return to council politics. So let us see what happened then. Factors that shaped Indian politics towards the late 1920s. Worldwide economic depression. In 1920s, it is in 1929, the world has experienced the first worldwide economic depression after post World War I. So as the years passed during the World War I afterwards, slowly the economy started to fall down, and finally in 1929, you can see the complete disastrous outlook of our economy. So agricultural prices, obviously when there is economic depression, the cost of the products will increase and the prices will be collapsing down. The demand for the agricultural goods fell down, exports declined. That is a result of worldwide economic depression. So Simon Commission. So during 1927-28, Simon Commission played an important role. It was constituted by the Tory government of Britain to look into the demands of the nationalists and suggest changes in the constitutional structure of India. So this committee was initiated by the government in Britain to come here and study in India how is the situation, how the nationalist leaders are fighting, what changes can be brought to reduce this movement. The commission arrived in 1928. Actually, it started in 1927. It used to take 2 months before from Britain to India to travel through ship. So it took, in some books it is 1927, in some books it is 1928. Actually, they started in 1927, November or December. So they came in 1928, January. So the Congress protested against this commission. Why the Congress protested against this commission? One point is that they don't have any Indian in this commission or the committee. There is no Indian in this committee, and none of the Britishers can understand the Indian languages, nor the Indians can very well explain their problems in English to the commission members. So these were the two reasons why the Simon Commission has been protested by the Congress party. In December 1929, under the presidency of Jawaharlal Nehru, the Lahore session of Congress formalized the demand for Purna Swaraj. Now, what is the meaning of the word presidency? In any meeting, whoever presides as the president of the meeting, that person is called as the president of the meeting or chairman of the meeting, and that is called presidency of the meeting. So if anybody presides over as a president, that is called presidency of that particular person. In December 1929, under the presidency, under the leadership of Jawaharlal Nehru, the Lahore session of Congress was formalized, appealed, and stabilized the demand that we need Purna Swaraj, complete independence. We need complete independence. So the factors that shaped Indian politics towards the late 1920s, one is a worldwide economic depression. The agricultural prices collapsed after the 1930s as the demand of agricultural goods fell and exports declined. Simon Commission, it was constituted by the Tory government of Britain to look into the demands of the nationalists and suggest changes in the constitutional structure of India. But Congress party protested against the commission because there is no Indian in the committee and there is not even one person to understand genuinely the problems of the Indians. That's why Congress party protested against this commission. In December 1929, Under the presidency of Jawaharlal Nehru, the Lahore session of Congress formalized the demand of Purna Swaraj, complete freedom. Salt March and the civil disobedience movement. Gandhiji decided that we have to choose a medium to unite all the people in the nation and fight against the Britishers. So Gandhiji was looking for the movement which product can make all the people to come together. So what Gandhiji thought was salt will act as a medium that could unite the nation as it is consumed by all sections of the society. Everybody is using salt. So now the Britishers have started to make taxes on salt also. So Gandhiji thought if we choose salt for our protest, everybody in the nation will get united and we can bring unity among the all Indians. That's why Gandhiji chose salt as the medium that could unite the nation as it consumed by all the sections of the society. Salt March. Why is it known as Salt March? Because salt is the medium which is chosen and they are doing a march to break the salt laws. That's why this is referred as Salt March or Dandi March. Gandhiji reached to Dandi and he did the march. So he began the Salt March or Dandi March on 12th of May 1930. On 6th of April, Gandhiji reached to Dandi, a village in Gujarat, and broke the salt laws by boiling water and manufacturing salt. So what is the crime in this? Actually, the Britishers have banned making salt from the seawater. So Gandhiji want to show his resistance by doing this one. That is the reason why Gandhiji started the Salt March. I told you why he chose only salt, because it could be a connecting medium to unite all the Indians. So in 12th of March 1930, he started this one, and 6th of March, 6th of April 1930, Gandhiji reached Dandi, the village in Gujarat, and he broke the salt law by boiling water and manufacturing the salt. Thus, it began the civil disobedience movement. It was different from non-cooperation movement as people are now asked not only to refuse the cooperation but also to break colonial laws. My dear students, you might get a one mark question asking you what is the difference between non-cooperation movement and civil disobedience movement. My dear students, the non-cooperation movement asks people only to refuse cooperation, but not to break the colonial laws. But when it comes to civil disobedience movement, they are not only asking to refuse cooperation, but also to break the colonial laws. Even Gandhiji himself has broken the law by making salt. That is the difference between non-cooperation movement and civil disobedience movement. And boycotting of foreign goods, non-payment of taxes, breaking forest laws were its main features. So not only breaking laws, in that breaking laws means boycott foreign goods, non-payment of taxes, breaking the forest laws were its main features. The British government followed the policy of brutal repression. I think you all know the Britishers don't like any kind of agitations or voices being raised against the Britishers. So British government arrested all the leaders including Gandhiji and Nehruji. They arrested all the leaders including Gandhiji and Nehruji. The Salt March and civil disobedience movement. Gandhiji chose salt as a medium that could unite the nation as it is consumed by all sections of society. So he started the Salt March, he broke the salt laws, he began the civil disobedience movement. In the civil disobedience movement, how is it different from the non-cooperation movement is that they are not only refusing cooperation, but also breaking the colonial laws. They boycott the foreign goods, non-payment of taxes, breaking forest laws. British followed the policy of brutal repression, and they went to an extent where they arrested all the Congress leaders, including Gandhiji and Nehruji. Mahatma Gandhi saw this one, people, the British Act brutally suppressing them and taking violent steps. So innocent people are getting hurt. So Gandhiji called off the movement. Gandhi-Irwin Pact. On 5th of March 1931, Lord Irwin, the Viceroy of India, signed a pact with Gandhiji to call off the non-cooperation movement or civil disobedience movement. In December 1931, Gandhiji went to London for the second roundtable conference but returned with disappointment. So when they signed the pact on 5th of March 1931, it was promised that Gandhiji will be called for a round of meeting, the roundtable conference at London, and there they will be discussing what to do next. But unfortunately, Gandhiji returned back to India in December 1931 after attending the roundtable conference with a lot of disappointment. So he came back to India and he planned to relaunch the civil disobedience movement by 1934, but people lost interest towards the movements and the movement itself lost its momentum. Because if you look at the sequence of the incidents, 1920 he started a movement, 1921 he called it off, 1930 he started, 1930 he called it off. So again he is starting, so definitely he will be calling it off. That's what people might have thought. So slowly the momentum got reduced. How the participants saw the movement. Rich peasants communities expected that revenue tax to be reduced. When the British refused to do so, they joined the movement. So rich peasants are expecting the taxes to be reduced. They did not join the movement as the movement was called without revising the revenue rates. So when they joined the movement, the Congress party did not promise anything where they are going to reduce the revenue taxes if Britishers agree. Like we have to bring pressure on the Britishers to reduce this, but they did not promise anything for the rich. So the rich peasants did not join the movement. Coming to the poor peasants. The poor peasants wanted rents of the lands to be remitted. Rich wanted the taxes to be reduced. Poor wanted the rents to be remitted, means removed. The Congress was unwilling to support the no rent campaign due to the fear of upsetting the rich peasants and landlords. So Congress party was afraid that if we support the poor peasants campaign of no rent campaign, then the rich peasants will go against the Congress party. So they did not support the poor peasants also. Coming to the business class. After the war, their huge profits were reduced. They wanted protection against the import of foreign goods. During the war, the local industries of India were called to support the Britishers, so the production increased. Now, after the war has ended, now obviously the British goods will be imported to India. The business class want that to be stopped. Did Congress promise anything? Let's see. The spread of militant activities worried the prolonged business disruptions. Growing influence of socialism against the young Congress forced them not to join the movement. So the businessmen or the business class also did not join the movement because they were worried about the militant activities and the ideology of the young congressmen towards socialism. So businessmen also did not show much interest to join the movement. What about the women? Women also participated in the protests, in the Dandi March, picketing, foreign cloth, liquor shops, everything. But Congress was reluctant to allow women to hold any position of authority within the organization. So no Congress members were allowing any women to hold any good positions. Exceptional cases are there here and there, like Vijayalakshmi Pandit and all, but Sarojini Naidu, except those few cases, they were not allowing women to take leadership positions. So rich peasants, poor peasants, businessmen, women were not given any importance by the Congress party. What are the limitations for the civil disobedience movement? The Dalits or the untouchables did not actively participate in the movement because they demanded reservation of seats, separate electorates for them. Limits of civil disobedience. The civil disobedience could not even accommodate the Dalits, the untouchables, because they also did not participate in the movement, because they demanded reservation of seats and separate electorates for the Dalits or untouchables. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar emerged as the leader of the Dalits, formed an association in 1930 called the Depressed Classes Association. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who was the leader of Dalits, formed an association in 1930 called the Depressed Classes Association, and he clashed with Gandhiji. So there was a mutual agreement signed between Gandhiji and B.R. Ambedkar, ending the clash, and gave reserved seats in provincial and central councils, but were voted by general electorate. Now the point here is, what did Dr. B.R. Ambedkar want and what did Gandhiji give? Gandhiji gave them equality by adding the number of seats to the number of total seats. He reserved certain seats where all members will vote for them. But what did B.R. Ambedkar ask? B.R. Ambedkar asked separate reservation of seats and only Dalits will vote for them. That's how he asked. Instead of that, we will reserve the seats in every segment, all the parliamentary seats or the council seats, and certain seats are only for SC and STs. General public also will vote for them. So like that, the Pune Pact was signed between Gandhiji and B.R. Ambedkar. That's how it came in 1932. Another leader of Muslim League, M.A. Jinnah, wanted reservation of seats for Muslims also in the Central Assembly. Now, what did Gandhiji do? As large sections of Muslims did not participate in the civil disobedience movement because there is no clarity from the Congress party whether there will be seats reserved for Muslims or not. To be honest, they did not even recognize Muslim League as a true representation of Muslims of India. So what are the limitations of the civil disobedience? One is Dalits did not join. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar clashed with Gandhiji. Later the clash was subdued by the pact, Pune Pact, and Muhammad Ali Jinnah also raised a question for reservation of seats where large sections of Muslims also did not participate in the civil disobedience movement. So the sense of collective belonging. The sense of collective belonging came partly through the experience of united struggles. We could not emerge a complete feeling among all the Indians through the united struggles. It slowly and gradually started to emerge. So history and fiction, folklore and songs, popular prints and symbols were used to develop the sense of belongingness among all the people and create that nationalism or patriotic feeling among all the Indians. In 1921 itself, Gandhiji has designed the Swaraj flag. It was again a tricolor, red, green, and white flag, and had a spinning wheel in the center of it. So Gandhiji made all possible efforts to unite all the Indians first. Due to some reason, they could not get connected to many sections in the society. India is having a lot of diversities, and we are again further divided on the basis of religions. So due to all these problems, it has become difficult to develop the sense of collective identity. So those are the key points in this chapter. Hope you all understood. Make the notes of the key points and stay tuned. Thank you.